The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplified Motion Physical Therapy in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution PT and Fitness in Connecticut and Long Island. How are we doing today, Brian?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How we doing? This is like, this gets me all jacked up. I'm excited about this topic today.
I was going to say,
talked about it before.
Right in your wheelhouse. So, So as people probably can tell by the title of this podcast, we're going to be talking about Facebook ads. And I say Facebook, it's really meta with Instagram and all that. But I've heard the constant debate with any physical therapy business owner is, are ads worth it, right? Physical therapy is something that is absolutely, you can absolutely make a business with word of mouth, right? You can have a nice little job for yourself, word of mouth, friends tell a friend, and you'll at least be able to make your own income, right? But a lot of people, they want to do more than that, or they want to be able to have something where they don't have to constantly be waiting by the phone, right? They want to drive some traffic to their business. And of course, advertisements is one of the best ways to do that, right? So some people advertise by obviously, posting on Instagram, maybe trying to get some organic followers and things like that. But for most people, because we're kind of out of that, like it's easy to be an influencer era of Instagram and Facebook, a lot of people will turn to meta ads, right? And these Facebook ads. And the reason I wanted to have this topic is, I know it's kind of a passion of yours. It's very interesting that for you've built your business and that, 5 clinics, 2 million in annual revenue. And I mean, from what I know, you still do your own ads, right? Or at least you very much. Yeah. So I think, because you mentioned how much you spend, but you don't spend that on someone else doing it for you, right?
No, I used to. I think we'll talk like I think it's I don't want to interrupt your intro. My bad. But
you're good. I just babble on, man.
It's all good. So I mean, there's something I want to talk about too, because I want all the Facebook anti-paid ads hate. I want it all. Bring it. For those of you listening to this, if you have it, I want to prove you all wrong and why it's all fake.
I love it. Get back in your cage. Get back in your cage. I want to I got to set. All right. So to set this up, there's Google ads. There's Facebook ads. We're going to be talking about Facebook ads. And what I really want to know out of this conversation is, when do I pull that lever, man? Like I'm at a point in my business where I have a little bit of money that I don't need to take home to like pay the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
A few $100 here or there. Is that just like a drop in the bucket? Is that worth me throwing a Facebook ad with a few $100? Do I need to wait until I have $1,000 a month? All these are kind of questions that owners are figuring out. And then we can always add on top of, should you do it yourself first? Should you pay somebody right away? So I think let's answer that first question. Like, when should I be doing Facebook ads?
Right away. The second you have the cash to do it. Now. Like, we talked about SEO and website, probably behind that. Why? Because SEO and website is going to draw towards the website, and that's going to be the thing that's going to get you clients to you, right? That you're actually going to do that. The next is spending money on advertising to drive people to that website. And so paid advertising is the absolute way to do it. And people are right? Like word of mouth, it's the only way, blah, blah. Here's the thing about word of mouth. It takes your time. Right? Paid advertising does not take your time. Other than you setting it up, it's a set it and forget it type of system. Now, I'm gonna say you should never actually forget it, otherwise you're an idiot. But in terms of like setting it and learning it and doing it, it doesn't sacrifice your time. So you can go out while this lead machine is creating for you. It's why I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, this thing will create leads for me while I'm gone. That's amazing, right? And so we're going to talk a lot about that, because one of the things, Owen, that I think that I hear a lot of hate from is, well, how do I know it's working? Right? Like, how do I know it's working if it's coming to me? Well, that's because they're not doing the advertising right, you ding dong. Like, that's exactly that simple. Like, if you don't know how it's working, like, point the finger inward. We've talked about accountability. If you don't know how to measure the cost for acquiring a customer, You don't know where that person's coming from. That means the advertising you're running is just traffic generated stuff. That's the thing with Google ads. So Google ads are traffic. Now, what are you getting for your money when you pay for Google? We were talking about it on one of our last episodes where Owen's writing like a fiend for Google and for Google SEO, and he's just making it on the first page. He's number 10, right? So here's the difference that him and I have, right? So Owen is like, I'm going to write blogs, I'm going to get organic, I'm going to do that. Fantastic. He took a year to get on the top 10. I can turn on the lever right now and put in Arizona and put evolution in Arizona, and guess what? I'm number 1 on the list because I paid for it. That's the power of paid advertising, guys. Like you can skip all that time. Right. So by doing that, people will be like, oh, so it accelerates word of mouth. And that's just the traffic side of it, that I can actually build the traffic piece. So by doing that and adding that process, that's where Google ads can be. So it's also understanding the difference of like, what's a traffic ad? What's a lead gen ad? Right. What is we call it the storm, right? I call it the storm. It's like, what creates the storm of people knowing about Simplify Motion, about evolution, physical therapy, all that stuff, right? This right here is content creation, what you and I are doing on a podcast. So there's an understanding of explaining what works well. So again, there's 4 ways of creating leads. And I know I'm rambling, soapboxing, and jumping on. So
I want to just do this because I think those four ways are important. We use it a lot. Yes. I think just as a kind of 1,000-foot view, Google ads will bring you people who have gotten a prescription or been told they need to get physical therapy, right? And they're searching, I need physical therapy, right? So the theory is they're going to be very warm leads, right? But the problem is what's your customer, right? And if you are a cash-based or you're trying to build your cash-based business, right, which a lot of people listening to this, that's what they're trying to do. You may want to get them in a different part of the buying cycle where maybe they're just saying, I'm a little sore in my shoulder, right? And that's where Facebook ads, I think, can target way better. Google ads only get people who actively are searching for you, whereas you can push people towards physical therapy versus chiropractic versus acupuncture versus whatever who are in pain. So this is a kind of a very distinct delineation I want to get for people. Now we will, if people want it, we can talk about Google ads, but for the meta ads, that's a big, deciding point why you would do that.
Yeah.
So now talk about those.
Yeah.
Well, you got something to say about that? Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, the 4 major things that we talk about, right, are paid advertising, right? Content creation, cold leads. So reaching out to people just randomly, and then referral partners, right? So let's talk about those 4 things real fast to review them, right? Here's the thing when it comes, and we're going to talk strictly physical therapy. We could talk about fitness and other podcasts or other things, but let's keep it to physical therapy just because we could talk about this topic for 10 hours, in my opinion, right? Here's the problem. There's pros and cons. Cold leads, almost impossible to do in physical therapy because the reality is unless you're going to walk up to some dude on crutches in the street and say, hey, I'm a physical therapist, do you want to work with me? Which would be kind of weird, right? Cold leads are tough. A little bit easier on the fitness side because you can go, like, for those of you listening, like, you can be DMing people, you can be doing different stuff, you can do that, right?
Everyone wants to lose weight and look good.
Exactly, right? So it's a different type of market that you're explaining to. Physical therapy is an active thing. Now, so that to me is the lowest one. The second lowest is content creation. Now, why is it content creation? Because if I show how good of a physical therapist I am, it kind of shows more about authority and what we do. It doesn't necessarily attract people. It's part of the storm. It's a lead nurture thing. But it's not even lead nurture in the way of like a paid lead gen. It's going to be just one of those things where it's going to be traffic. So I'm going to create traffic, but it's a lot easier to pay for it than create content. Like I said, think about the content. Content creation is Owen doing the blog post. What's easier, me paying for the eyeballs and putting it on top of Google, or Owen having to bust his butt for the next 2 years writing blogs to go compete with all the big guys around him, right? Yeah. Same thing on Instagram. What's harder, me to get 1 million followers on Instagram, or me to go pay to put stuff in that like region? So like it's just easier on the paid advertising front. It makes it simpler. So when people say, "Oh, paid advertising, it doesn't work," blah blah. Again, we'll talk about that pitfall. So again,
I think the it doesn't work thing is a really good topic for the end of this podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling you're telling on yourself if you say it doesn't work, because there are a lot of things that a lot of it has to do with the person doing the ads, right?
Yes.
The seller of the products.
We'll chat about that.
Yeah. Good.
We'll chat about that.
Anyway, that's an aside.
Yeah.
That's an aside.
Yeah, we'll talk about the advertising and the pitfalls because I've actually talked to Owen about like, oh, we should do it here. I'm like, you got to do it a certain way, otherwise it sucks. And that's the thing. There's a lot of ways to do it wrong, and unfortunately, there was a huge money grab with this. There's a lot of hacks out there. So unfortunately, like, I think, my overall recommendation to most people is to learn how to do it themselves and learn and pay for mentorship, right? We don't even need to do a physio growth thing for that. Just pay us and we'll teach you how to like do it, and I'll show you how to do it. And that way you can do it on your own, because no one's
Brian,
gonna know your business better than you are, right?
did you
Go ahead,
say
take it.
physio growth?
Yeah.
Did you say physio growth? If
Do
you
it.
want to take your PT practice to new heights, do it with Physio Growth. Our mentorship program helps physical therapists grow their business and boost income. Join us at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. And I think it's
Beautiful.
important to talk about this too, because like there you can say, oh, for just $100, I'll get you 5 new cash patients tomorrow, or join my webinar, it's free and you're going to do this. And yeah, they'll get you 5 leads, right? But can that be sustainable? Do you know what to do with those leads? Do you know what part
Yeah.
of the buying process they're in?
There's sections. Yeah.
All of those things, that is not just a simple like, hey, here's me knowing a bunch of stuff, let me just run this ad for you.
Exactly.
You as the business owner have to understand all the different aspects of how a client comes to you. And I think with our mentorship group, we do a really good job of taking specific issues that people have, right? And figuring out for their market, their business, what they want out of it, how to tailor that.
Yeah, and listen, there's marketing agencies out there that'll charge you $50K a year to do your ads for you. That doesn't include ad spend. That's just $50K for them to do it, right?
Well,
And by the way, and to do it okay. It's not that
what is
great.
market rate? Like, I think you mentioned something like 20% of ad spend.
Yeah, I mean that's on the inexpensive side. Market rate for most people I've seen is anywhere between $1,500 to $3,500 per month to pay someone to do it for you, right? Think about if
Oh,
you're
just their
outsourcing
fee.
to an employee. Just the fee. That's not you paying. That's why it's so good. Like, that's one of the things I focused on so specifically. Like, I was like, well, why would I pay somebody when I can learn how to do it? Let me see if I can learn how to do it. I'm going to spend $18,000 to $50,000 per year. If I can learn how to do it, I'm going to pay myself that, right? So again, I took the time to learn in time, not money, on that one, right?
Well,
And
and to
now
be
we're actually
fair, you
teaching people how to do it.
honestly, you could probably, if you dedicate, hours to it, but it doesn't have to be like 3 years to it, right?
Yeah.
These, people who are running these agencies didn't go to like Harvard of Facebook ads, right? They know how to do it, and they are just betting you don't want to take the 20, 40, whatever hours to learn how to do it, and then the reps to
Exactly.
get better at it.
That's all it is. It's taking 100 hours to learn it, right? And we can teach you. So that's the one. But let's go back to what we were talking about before. So on top, outside of cold leads and content creation, the next two that I think are very effective in physical therapy, one is referral partners, right? And so referral partners, obviously, we were talking about this, Owen, gym owners, whatever, other tons of doctors, there's tons of referral partners for physical therapy. That's the more traditional way to do it. There's other referral partners. You can do community events, but again, it's time. It's your time now. And at a certain point, I promise you that as you build your business, you're going to want your time back. And so this is something where the last one that I think is the best is paid advertising, because it can be doing it when you're actually treating with your family, any of the things that you're doing. This paid advertising could work without you. And so to me, it's the machine that you can use to scale your business even further. And so in my mind, when it comes to paid advertising, so let's go with the pros and cons on the referral partners. It's free to network with referral partners, or is it, right? It's your time. So think about the cost of acquiring these referral partners and where you're going. Obviously it takes time from just the amount of money that you get paid from a patient, or just the amount of time you get with satisfaction with your family, or any of those other things. So it takes your time, right?
I just spent 3 hours dropping by gyms and concierge doctors this
Yeah,
morning.
exactly. And now we can sort of measure how that would work. The good news is it only costs Owen his times, which is fine. So I'm not suggesting you don't do it, right? Going to certain meetings and going to other networking groups that we've talked about, those things just cost time, a little bit of money, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what you can pay. But say I spend $1,500 to $3,000 a month on paid advertising, right? Which again, if you think about, if I get 3 patients from that, it's paying for itself. We've talked about the patient finance acquisition, along with the fact that even if you just broke even, it's a one-to-one relationship. Ultimately, on that service, that's going to accelerate your word of mouth, which is also going to help. So you're getting paid to treat. You're actually growing your business, and it's going to accelerate on the side. So it should continue to grow that. So to me, what's great about paid advertising. Now, what are the pitfalls of paid advertising? Again, and I'll tell you the reason. So here are the big pitfalls of paid advertising. I don't know what it's doing, meaning I don't know if it's actually working. I'm spending a bunch of money on it, right? Again, the creative, I'm paying these agencies to do it, but I don't think they're pushing the type of stuff that I want to, right? There's all sorts of those problems. Again, if you learn how to do it properly and back it up with a proper offer, you should be totally fine. You should do really well. And so in my opinion, even the best agencies, some agencies I thought are really good, They'll even if you're using an agency right now and you're like, well, my agency is awesome. I promise you,
Mhm.
at some point you're not going to like them, because what's going to happen is you're going to saturate a market of some capacity, and it's not
Mhm.
going to work well. So even the best people at advertising, in my opinion, on Facebook have pitfalls. Why? Because they're expensive. So the value for what you're spending on needs to be
Mhm.
pretty freaking high. Number one, and number two, they're not going to know your business like you are. So remember, if they're running that type of business, they're trying to bring on other businesses. So simple
Mhm.
scales. So I have found the best businesses only do one thing and do one thing really well. So over
Mhm.
time, if you do that one thing all the time, eventually you're going to fatigue it within your market. And if you fatigue it
Mhm.
within your market, you're going to start, obviously it's not going to work as well and be effective. So that's the thing about paid advertising on Meta. So to me, when it comes to Meta, you should always be looking at it, always be freshening it up, make it part of your day. And the reality is, like, if you're not doing over $1 million of business, you should be spending 4 hours a day on that type of stuff,
Yeah.
like referral partners and then advertising.
Well, and I think that's important. I love the fact that you took the four main, ways of getting a customer and kind of prioritized it for a physical therapist, because I look at the top two, right? Referral partner and then paid ads. If you look, both of us are in very different parts of our cycle of business, right? Mine is my income, right? And it's very quickly getting to be the fact that I will have some extra money to be able to do this. This is why I thought it was an interesting topic. But I'm still very much heavy on the referral partners, right?
Yep.
And to me, I'm not a completely full schedule yet, so I have some time, so that's not a huge expense for me to do. Whereas with you, right, if I was to tell you you're going to get maybe two patients and you have to drive around for 2 hours, like, that's a complete waste of your time, right?
Totally.
So I think it's important to kind of realize that just because you're not doing paid ads doesn't mean you're not doing the best you can,
Totally.
but realize that this is a big mental jump. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking at, is that you got to think you're spending money, you're giving it to someone, or you're doing it yourself. You're giving it to Facebook, or you're giving it to someone else to give to Facebook. And you just see that come out of your phone every day. 20 bucks hits the bank account, 30 bucks hits the bank account, whatever it is you're spending per day, right? And I think that that's the mental thing that gets people, and I think that's why they go, I tried it, it didn't work, right? Nope,
Yep.
not for me. Because maybe they have to hit 2,000 in business that week to be able to take home enough to pay their mortgage,
Yeah.
and they made 2,500 that week, so they feel great, and they take 500 and it starts to piss away, and they don't have that patient at 500, right? And then they're like, oh, wasted money, right? So there is a law of big numbers kind of here, right? Like, as you have to put some time into it, it is a little bit of a gamble. So I know that anybody who's like a smaller practitioner, like a solopreneur listening to this, it's probably the biggest thing. So I know with you, there was a point where you were in that boat where it wasn't just
Yeah.
an automatic boom, boom, boom. Like, how is it the measuring it that really helped you, or is it just knowing the science of, like, I got to get in front of more eyeballs?
It,
I look at my insights on Instagram and it shows I posted something, the reel got to 1,000 people, whereas if you pay, you get 10,000 people. Like,
yeah. I knew what my goal was, right? Like I knew what my goal was. I knew my goal was to do more than just like 100, 200K in revenue, right? The goal was to keep helping more people and keep growing it. I knew it was leaving stuff on the table. So once I realized, and again, like I'm going to throw his name out there because it's perfect, but Alex Ramosi, I
mhm,
watched him speak and he goes, if you're not spending, this time and you're not doing $1 million, like if you're not doing $1 million of business, he said, he goes like, you're not, it's an advertising problem. That's
yeah,
all it is. And so you got to the point people listening being like, well, I spent the 30 here and the blah, blah, blah. Again, if you're not doing over $1 million, like that's a guy who's going to be a billionaire some days, a
yeah,
multi-millionaire, right? It's like when you think about where this is at and where it's going, in
mhm,
my mind, I would actually argue again at this point now, actually, and I still think we have an advertising problem because I still think, well, even though we're at the 2 million mark on the pace and we're at 5 clinics, right? Like the reality is like it's still an advertising problem individually because we're not at 5 million, right? That's per
yeah,
location in my mind. So the
yeah,
reality is we just need to it's the easiest thing to control. Just get more eyeballs on us, get more eyeballs on us, get more eyeballs on us, right? And the reality of that scenario is, then you can really grow. And so that's how I would look at it for most people is
yeah.
I think that it's an important thing to think about generally.
And I
Uh,
think I think it's
yeah.
important to do a review, right?
Yes.
And like you said, that customer acquisition cost that we preach about is so important. Excuse me. Is that you have to look at 3 months, And I honestly, this is my strategy in my head is I'm going to get up a certain amount of money that is not take home pay, that is just sitting in my bank account, and just say to myself, look, in 2 months I will spend this. And in those 2 months, I will rigidly look at where all my business came from, right? Should be doing that anyway, but I'll rigidly look at it. And then I'll have a number of like what this did for me,
Well, what I
right?
would say to you on too, and what I say to most people who, if you do it that way, right, this is where I think the tendency is it didn't work for me kind of lands, right? You and I
Okay.
have talked about this. That's the traffic model. The traffic model is I'm going to spend X amount of dollars. I'm going to try and get an advertisement out there that does this. And
Hmm.
ultimately that will drive more people. So if I look at when I started the ad to when I look at now, do I have more patience than I did before? Or do I have more money coming in the door than I did when I first started the ad, right? So that's the
Hmm.
one piece. So yeah, will that work? Totally. And can it justify it in your head? Sure. I mean, it can make it better. Or what you can also do is we talked about packages, right? So say you're a physical therapist and you sell a package. So it's a 10 pack for $1,500, 1750, whatever,
Hmm.
$1,500. If I sell a package, what I can do is I can set up an ad that calls out people specifically. So what I can do is I can literally make it a lead generation ad. So when they
Hmm.
do that, I say it's lead gen. What I mean by it is you got to give me your phone number, name, and email, and I'm going to actually work and engage with that person. Now I can actually see who that person is, and now I'm actively picking up the phone and calling that person. It's a classic Dan Kennedy marketing, right? Like I'm not waiting for the phone to ring with traffic. I'm actively picking up the phone and calling them. That's the
Okay.
difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I would suggest anybody who's like, I'm nervous about spending money on marketing to do that. Because if you do that, what ultimately happens, especially if you're selling a package of $1,500, being like,
Hmm.
no problem, why don't you come in? And then you go through all the sales scripts we've talked about, all that stuff. Now it's just sales, right? We're talking about with
Yeah.
Jared Durham.
And you
Like
may
now
not
it's just
sell the
sales.
package, but you sell them on a few visits. And I think
Exactly.
I think it's important also just for people who maybe haven't gotten in the weeds with meta ads. When Brian talks about lead gen, when you set up on the ads manager, right as you set up the beginning of a campaign, because this got me. That's why I want to say something about it. Is because you texted me, you're like, why aren't you doing a lead gen ad?
Yeah.
There is a certain setting of like what you can tailor the campaign for, and the one he's talking about is where it says lead gen, and that is it'll spray it to more people. It won't be as like, hey, come into me, but it'll get you more leads per um was it per click or per
No, well,
showing
the
or whatever
traffic's
it is.
per click. What basically what it does, it shows you per lead. So it shows you
Yeah.
how, on average, what you're paying. So again, like to give you an idea, like amazing ad. Like I think we talked about for your like workshop, it was like
Yeah.
$2 or something like that. I
Yeah.
have ads that are running their $5 to $9 per lead. Incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah.
$15, amazing. When you start getting over $30, then you start being like, all right, like let's see. But again,
When you
even
say
even
per lead or per closed
per
customer?
lead, no, per
Okay.
lead, not per
All right.
closed customer. Per closed customer, that'd be awesome because that's the
Yeah.
math, right? So say it's a $50 lead. So
Yeah.
say I get 10 people at
Hmm.
$50. The reality of the ratio is I should close one. So if I
Yeah.
have 10 people, that's the ratio you're looking for is 10% sales. So if I get 10 customers that are interested in physical therapy, and it costs me $500 to get those 50 at $50, right? That
Uh-huh.
means I got to sell one of my packages to that for physical therapy. If I sold a 10 pack at 1750, guess
Hmm.
what? That's more than a 3-to-1 ratio.
And 3 to 1 is what
Fantastic.
you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm a return on investment. I would do that all day long. Here's the thing: you get more cracks out of the better the ad is, and the better the actual offer is. So
Hmm.
again, think about now if I do, if I get advertising for $5 or $9 leads. All right, well,
Yeah.
now to get those 10 leads cost me 50 to $90. And now
Yeah.
that same package of 15, 1750 seems pretty damn good. And
Hmm.
same thing, that's why people will play with like trying to lower their costs, right? So like lower their cost of advertising and whatnot. That's why it's so effective. If you can get it, in my mind, if you can keep it in the 20s or below, you're killing it.
Per lead.
Personally. Yeah. Per lead.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the metric that I use. Again, that's just because based off of the packages or things that we all sell, like again, we talk about the CAC, think about 3-to-1 CAC ratio. If the cost requiring the customer,
Yeah.
again, is somewhere in that, $200 range, but you're selling them a $600 thing, that 3-to-1 ratio is pretty solid. So that's the idea behind it.
And the cool thing listening to you is that you can tell you've done all this for your company the whole time, right?
100%.
You can tell this is like your
Real
passion
fast
part.
too. Yeah, and real fast, you guys. I'm not saying that using an agency is a bad thing. We've used agencies. What I
Yeah.
would say to use agencies, like say you're like, hey, Owen and Brian, come help me do my Facebook ads. The first thing I would try and tell you, much like I would if a patient came in with back pain or neck pain or an ACL, is my goal here is to do this for you over a certain amount of time. You pay me, I'm going to teach you how to do it, and then you're going to do it on your own. Because eventually
Yeah.
you're going to do it better on your own. Right? Same exact thing. And then come back to me if you need help with stuff. Right? That's the whole point of how we set this up. It's no different. So that's the thing. I think with agencies, some people feel stuck. Like, all right, now what am I going to do? You want to learn from the agencies. That is so important. It's such a better position because then at a certain point you got to cut the cord, because here's the problem with agencies is, again, they're going to scale other businesses. And once they've got your money from you, they kind of like will just put things on autopilot, like certain things. This is my experience. Like an agency can't do creative as well as you can, because you're going to know what you want to do. So exactly, for me, the passion became, I've just watched it, even with the best agencies that we can afford the best agencies. You've used them. We've used them. And the reality is all of them have let us down over at some point, because they just don't have the ability to give us the customizable things that we want to do. The only person who can do that is you. You're the only person who knows that business. So it makes logical sense. If advertising is that important to get to a 7-figure business, and it's a huge, bottleneck for some people, why wouldn't it be the thing that I would figure out the most? That's why I say, that's why to come so full circle. When do you start advertising? It's now. You start figuring it out now, because that's what grows. It's the thing that I started when I was at your point in my business, starting out of my car. It's the thing I still spend I don't want to say the most time, but probably a lot of my time now doing at almost $2 million in revenue is like this. It's so important.
And honestly, man, like I would just love to sit and learn from you for an hour. And if you want to, you can join our mentorship group. So Physio Growth is where PTs turn their passion into profits, get expert, pointing at you, Brian, mentorship to expand your practice and achieve financial freedom. Start today at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. And honestly, man, like, especially listening to you about this particular topic, like we do Q&As once a week, $99 to get in on that. If you buy for the whole year, it's $800. We give a big old discount, and you get access to this, right? So we can walk you through these things and say, do this, not that. This is how I would do this. Who's your target customer? Okay, let's go through that. And these Q&As are really nice ways for people to do that at, $99 a month. Like I bought a pair of shoes that have been sitting in my closet for four months now. I haven't worn it yet, and I paid double that. So like,
exactly.
It's only going to help you. So with that, Brian, we are ending out, my friend. Thank you for dropping some knowledge today, and have a good Thursday.
You got it, man. See ya.
See ya.